Okay, so here we are. Um, I'm really excited about this show today, as all of our shows are pretty much amazing. I'm Alex S. Johnson. I founded Nocturnicorn Books. I am the author of such books as Jason X Death Moon, which I wrote in collaboration with the great Pat Cadigan, who won the Hugo Award um, for um, for her work as a pioneer in cyberpunk science fiction, um, and as well as the late great Nancy Kilpatrick, who unfortunately has passed away on March 31st. So, I would like to, as part of this show, because Kevin and I were mutual friends of hers, as was pretty much everybody who was part of the dark fiction community, that came up in the 90s. And so I'd like to really talk about spend a little bit of time talking about Nancy as well. And you know, I do Nocturnicorn Books, and it's become much more than just a another indie publisher. It's become the sort of the misfit toy that actually, you know, that went from being, sort of canceled and you know, had a lot of people hating me and wanting to ruin my reputation, and I sort of just persevered, and now we have over 80 contributors. I mean, past and present, which include people such as um, Graham Masterton, Maxim Jakubowski, Billy Martin, aka Poppy Z. Bright, Caitlin R. Kieran is a multiple contributor. Merritt Walden, who's a good friend of another friend of our, actually several friend of ours, and collaborator with Ron Whitehead, who's the Nobel Prize for Literature nominee, and it's collaborated with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and whatever, and and we have Kevin Andrew Murphy on board here. Kevin and I go way, way back. This is the first time that we've actually seen each other face to face since the
Hmm.
90s, when we were roomies at the World Fantasy Convention in New Orleans, and where the guest of honor was George R. R. Martin, whom Kevin Murphy works with, and he's he's you know he's one of the people in is included in our one of our more recent publications, White on White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus, which features everybody from Caitlin R. Kiernan, Jarbo from Swans, Carrie Lee Chrome, who founded the Runaways, and I've known since for 3 years now. Good friend of mine, and she wrote such songs as Waiting for the Night, Secrets, and California Paradise. And, you know, um, on the inside track, was responsible for Cherry Bomb. And Ellen Maybe is our another one of our contributors. Graham Masterton, um, Paula D. Ash, was who won the Shirley Jackson Award for We Are Here to Hurt Each Other, which has actually included a story that I commissioned. Um, Lucy Taylor, the Queen of Erotic Horror, is a Bram Stoker Award-winning author, who was also there at a couple of conventions. I've only been to a handful of conventions in my life because of social phobia. So in two of those conventions had Kevin and and Thomas and Caitlin R. Kiernan and Krista Faust and um, Thomas Roche, of course, Nancy Kilpatrick, Nancy Collins. Um, and so, and then we have Are You Sirius, who is the founder of the legendary Mondo 2000. Um, he was sort of at the center of this perfect storm of yeah of like psychedelic, neo psychedelic. um yes, oh my gosh. Neo psychedelics. How do we call these people? People like Timothy Leary, William S. Burroughs, Trent Reznor. um and if you were anybody, you were on the cover of Mondo 2000. I mean, it was like,
Only women on the cover, except for Todd Rundgren and
oh yeah, Todd Rundgren, yeah.
a drag queen named Jade.
Right, but you had, I mean, I'm talking about the names on the
Sintra
cover as
Wilson.
well. So you
Oh, the
had
name's on the
Gibson,
cover.
right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Sterling,
Yeah.
and you had, well, of course, Debbie Harry was on the cover, and just everybody. But yeah, so it was an amazing time and place, but it's not over. I mean, it's certainly, I feel like it's just begun, and um with Steel the Singularity, uh, Ken and I are really kind of trying to culture jam the culture jam. You know what I'm saying? Like, like deconstruct it and turn this on its head in a very kind of singularity way, right? And so I would just like to dive right in, and I think I'll start with Ken here. So tell us and tell our viewers, all two of them, about Steal the Singularity. How did that start?
Well, I came up with the phrase quite a while ago, maybe a dozen years ago. Play off of Abby Hoffman's "Steal This Book." Obviously, although not necessarily obvious to a lot of people. I think Abby is an obscure uh, uh, relic of the late 1960s, early 1970s. Steal This Book came out in 1970 or 1971. But I've been feeling just recently uh, with the increasing focus on the tech bro ruling class and the peculiar horrors of their ideology, which they're stating very blatantly now, in some cases being about the elimination of humanity, uh, standing in the way of post humanity, imagined in some cases as virtual creatures who have escaped biology and can therefore live blissful and superior lives as compared to the horrid, fleshy meat things wandering around, like myself and you, wandering around this planet at this time. So there's a notion that's been discussed on. I can't think of his name, but it's called TESCREAL. It marries the term transhumanism, singularitarianism, and a bunch of other terms along those lines into what he sees as an ideology that is starting to dominate Silicon Valley, which is strongly, as I've just expressed, focused on dehumanizing uh, most people. And it hooks into white supremacy to a degree, but
Yeah.
it's also, there's no skin involved once you're virtual. Um, so, I mean, that's kind of uh, where we're taking coming on with the Steal This Singularity, and also playing with Robert Anton Wilson's
Yes.
um, book Prometheus Rising,
Yes.
which was about a sort of positive transhumanism and about methods for enlightenment. I have changed that to Prometheus rioting, and so we're marrying still this singularity to rioting against the tech bro ruling class, and we are putting it out as a game because we don't want to say that it's a movement. That would be dangerous. So anyway, that's the brief on that.
Okay, and we're gonna introduce Mish Murphy, but remind me to talk about the Neuromancer game because that's an
Oh yeah.
interesting thing that has. So we're
I have
also
a little
joined.
question.
Yes.
Do these, you know, the first post-humans that you talked about, do they have it? They have sex?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm sure they can within the imaginations of these post singularity type people have blissful moments of that would be something like sex. I mean, when I was first, I was hired to edit the transhumanist organization, their magazine H Plus, quite a while ago. And the first time I went to a gathering that was organized by them, the person who drove me down to the South Bay here in the Bay Area told me that he didn't like sex because it was messy and time consuming.
It's true.
Uh,
So true. So true.
so, there's some ambiguity there around sexual enjoyment. I mean, there are human transhumanists, that emphasize the humanism aspect of it.
Hmm.
They, I would say, enjoy sex. Although, I've definitely heard a number of people in from that area of thought feeling that sex was disturbingly primitive.
True. Could be.
Yeah, primitive.
How do they reproduce?
Ah,
Or
well, I
do
mean, once they're disembodied, they can
they live
you can
forever?
you can make as many copies of yourself as you want. I mean, it's kind of the principle of online post scarcity, only as post-human consciousness is.
Wow. Yeah, and speaking of, and I think especially that Mish will appreciate this one. This is a book that I'm very proud to have been, included in along with some legendary names. And it was put out by Penguin Random House in 2005. And I'll just show you, it's a really interesting book because it's called Master Slave, right? So it's like this is the one of the covers, okay, and it says 30 spanking tales from the top. That's the master part. It's edited by N.T. Morley, okay, who's kind of a legendary author and editor. He's done a lot of extremely steamy books, right? And this is the part so you flip it over appropriately enough, and you got slave. Okay, slave is and I think that our mutual friend uh, um, well, I was thinking of not Suzanne Lummis, but Alexis Roan Fancher would really appreciate this book, right? So you flip it over, so you got master, and then you got slave, and it's 30 stinging tails from the bottom, okay? And I just wanted to show you this the table of contents is truly amazing. Okay, we have um some of the writers. Is Allison Tyler is in here, Cecilia Tan, who was like Kevin and I was um,
Hmm.
you know, we're mutual friends of Cecilia and Carol Queen, the late great Nancy Kilpatrick. Remind me to, we need to talk about Nancy. Um, uh, Patrick Califia is in here. It's represented by flannel nightgowns and white cotton panties. And I'm here uh, with Live Transmission, which was inspired by the song by Joy Division. And then the other side, you have, on the master side, appropriately enough, you have people like, again, Cecilia Tan, Tom Piccirilli, the late great Tom Piccirilli, um, and Thomas Roche, our mutual friend Thomas, and I think some other people. So anyway, I thought y'all would appreciate that, this book. Um, So yeah, um, so Mish Murphy is, among other things, she's an educator. She works as a college English instructor in St. Petersburg. Where is it? St. Petersburg, Florida?
In Polk County,
Okay, okay,
Florida.
okay. So, um,
Polk State
okay,
College.
okay, okay, college. Okay,
College.
and she knows Russian and French, right? So, among other things, and I first was came to know Mish because of my project which is now called Neurospicy, a defiantly different anthology, which I started last year, and it's blossomed and accumulated, and I'd really love to have something from Kevin and Ken as well for this book, which is a basically a neurodivergency rights anthology. It was originally called We Are Gregor, but there were some haters that got into the mix, and the whole name. I don't. I'm increasingly dislike the term disability, and one of the biggest reasons, one of the biggest reasons. Well, there are two people who are friends of mine um and have endorsed my work. And their names are Lyric Rivera, also known as Lyric Holzmans, aka Neurodivergent Rebel, and Lasara Firefox Allen, who was the author of things like Sexy Witch. And I blurbed her forthcoming book, excuse me, forthcoming book, Gender Queer Menopause. And they're both non-binary transgender individuals and also neurodivergent. And so this really kind of illuminated me or enlightened me thinking about all of the neurodivergent authors that we work with, including Ellen Mabey, including Lee Mitchell, including Christina Deptula, including Carmilla Voyes, who calls herself my emotional support animal, or my, yeah, my emotional support. I think my emotional support animal, right? In Scotland, right? Who's the author of creator of the Starblood series. She's in the Bauhaus book with us. So, and then so we did a show last year that was hosted by Don Kingfisher Campbell, who's an amazing guy in his own right, and he's also in this book now, which is now called Neurospicy. And so I really, really wanted to emphasize one of the reasons that I loved having Amish on board is because of the very, very spicy aspects of her work. And one of the things that it first got, you know, me on her radar was this a couple of things. First of all, this poem, you know the one I'm talking about, the pirate poem, right? The pirate, I'll never let you live that down. And also,
Okay.
um,
What's
you're
wrong with it? What's
what?
wrong? What's wrong with it, Alex?
Oh, I didn't say anything was wrong with it. No, no, no. I mean, I will always bring that up, right? The pirate poem, which is very steamy, very hot, and as well as the the schlong,
Okay.
which was inspired by one of my favorite short stories, and anybody who's calls themselves literate and doesn't know the work of Nikolai Gogol should be taken out and shot. Um, I'm serious, man.
I agree.
Um, Nikolai Gogol, among other, okay, you want to talk about literature? He wrote the, I, how do you pronounce it? The Vij? The Vij. I was about to say the Vaj. You should write the Vaj. But it's the story um about this that witch, the witch, and it was turned into the film Black Sunday. Um, with Barbara Steele, right? And which by Mario Bava, which was later remade somewhat ineptly by his son Lamberto Bava. And so
Hey, Alex, I'm
um,
going to write that down because I did not know that.
yeah, and
Uh, this is a film.
right,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, Black. Well, the name Black Sabbath, right? Um,
Yeah.
was also it was also a Mario Bava film, and it was originally, I believe it was called Tre Volte de Parra, which is Italian for three tales of terror.
Oh,
And so that that featured Boris Karloff as the sort of introduced the segments. There are three segments, Tre Volte de, de, de la Paura. And then that was the inspiration for a guy named Geezer Butler, who was working with some mates like, Tony Iommi and 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 Bill Ward, William Ward, and this ne'er-do-well. It was pretty much fresh off, you know, being incarcerated in a sort of a penitentiary for juvenile delinquents, a guy named John Osborne, um, best known to his millions of fans throughout the world as Ozzy. And
yeah.
oh, and by the way, and then we have Kevin Murphy here, of course, who's also in this our forthcoming book that we're coming up with next, right out of the chute, because we're not wasting any time. Called Hand of Doom, a literary tribute to Black Sabbath. It's got everybody, and it's got features Kevin's story, which is called In Golden Halls, which is based on the song Heaven and Hell. And it is literally in the hand, this a rough cut of the Hand of Doom is literally in the hands of Tony Iommi. And we're having sometime this year, I don't know when, because Tony, I love saying that, right? Tony is in the studio right now, and he's recording some new stuff. I believe it's some solo stuff. He might be producing, one of the albums that he made with Tony Martin. And Tony Martin and Bev Bevan from Black Sabbath and Emerald Sabbath are going to be on our show. So I'd hope that all of y'all will be there, for that's been confirmed by Michael Suliban, who's our contact there in the UK. So that's a little promotion for the Hand of Doom book, which is a charity um, for the Children of the Night Incorporated, which works with to rescue children from the hands of sex traffickers. It's a very important cause for us. And so also uh, Eileen is in the Bauhaus book along with Kevin and Jarabo and Carrie Lee Chrome and Ethan Marolis from Black Tape for a Blue Girl. By the way, these are original stories and poems. John Palisano, the Bram Stoker Award-winning author, who's also uh, in let's see, he's in several other of my books. He's an old friend, and he he gave us an original story. You know, Ethan Morales gave us original piece. I mean, the guy who was the front man of Spawn Ranch, you know, he also has collaborated with a guy named David J. Haskins, who is also one of our authors. And just as an aside, people who have ears, who are into music and things like that, or just culture in general, right, have heard of a couple of bands, may have heard of called one Bauhaus. The other is called Love and Rockets. And David wrote a little something called Bela Lugosi's Dead. So he is in the two of our forthcoming books. Well, actually, we just came out with um, the it's called Just One Fix, a literary salute to William S. Burroughs, which has his original poem El Hombre Invisible in it, and then he's also very generously given us allowed us to republish the lyrics to The Day That David Bowie Died, and Moondust Will Cover You, a literary tribute to David Bowie, of course. And I would hope that Kevin as well, and are you serious is in the book as well. So sorry for the asides, but you know, it's all amazing stuff, right? And so um I have to mention John Yamras because among other things, right, I was just talking by phone with John Yamras. John Yamras is a mutual friend who was introduced to me by Mish here. And John is one of the OG like man who's wired in with the whole beat scene. He was close friends with the late Neely Cherkovsky, who's one of my biggest influences, Neely Cherry, or Sam Cherry, as he was known. Um, and and then as well as Mish edited his best of director's cut, was book, which is about 542 pages of sheer brilliance. John gave me permission to publish anything of his. And
Cool.
also he sent me 10 brand new poems. And he said you can do whatever you want with them. So I would love to do a book, a by invitation only, like, you know, not an anthology, but a sort of a and not a collaboration either, but with you, me, Catfish, McDaris, Alexis Roan Fancher, and Aliyah, and and some poems that were unpublished by Sandy DeLuca. We're really worried about, really worried about Sandy, right? So, and Mish also, um, you're a friend of Suzanne Lummis, right?
No,
You're not? You're
not
not.
really, not really. No,
Oh,
I think
okay.
maybe
Um,
Facebook friends, but not friend friends.
Okay, we need to talk about we need to, to do something about that.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
Because Suzanne Lummis um is one of the amazing historical connections that I have with some of these people is my great grandfather was a guy named Herbert Eugene Bolton, who was one of the most important historians in American history, not only American history, but pretty much the history of a history, he was a pioneer of actually getting off your ass and going out there, and instead of like pretending that United States was kind of, emerged like Minerva, was it like Athena from the head of Minerva or the other way around, right?
Zeus,
Yeah.
From
uh,
Zeus.
Zeus,
I
I think.
probably got my mythology all mixed up, um,
Could be me. I don't know.
but
It would be Minerva from Job, Athena from Zeus, whether you're doing Greek
Okay.
or
All
Roman.
right. All right.
thank you, Kevin. So at any rate, so up to the point where um, Herbert Bolton emerged onto the scene, um, the American history was pretty much like Plymouth Rock, and the people who genocided the Pequod, and gave us the city on a hill speech, right? They were kind of thought of as the people who founded America, and Native Americans and Mexicans and people who actually the indigenous people were nowhere to be seen, right? It was the Cotton Mather version of history where, it was just white people and then it was white men, right? White colonialists, and then there was there were these spirits, including, you know, like um it was like Cotton Mather wrote this book called Mysteries of the Invisible World, right? Where he posited the notion that the forests of North America are actually inhabited by demons, which was his terms for, Native Americans. My ancestor completely turned that shit on its head. He said, okay, so we're going to go to Mexico. Nobody had bothered to go to Mexico and say, look in the original archives and see what the Spanish were doing, 500 years ago. And he was considered at first like, who is this crazy ass gringo, on a pony, fucking pony, right? He took his early Model T Ford, sometimes on foot, sometimes walking through burning deserts, right? The guy, if they made a movie about him, it would be Indiana Jones times 10, The guy is a legend. Anyway, so he was close friends and colleagues with Suzanne Lummis's grandfather, um, Charles Lummis, who founded the Southwest Museum, right?
How do you
And
spell Lummus?
Lummis, Lummis, yeah, Lummis. And
Okay.
so when I was living in on Mount Washington, um, which is where Occidental College is, where Don Campbell taught there, then my grandfather went to school there, and also people like Terry Gilliam and a guy named Barack Obama went to school there, right? And it's a really unusual place, a lot of mystical energy there. And so yeah, and Dawn is in the neurospicy with us. So I took a look at these original letters. I mean, these are the original letters, like there were type letters between Herbert Bolton and Charles Lummis, and you know Herbert Bolton was saying, "Hey, did you read my article about the Anasazi Indians? It's really good." And it's like, and then this goes on and on in this vein for like, several letters, and finally he gets a response from Lummis, and he's like, "Oh, wow, thanks for reading my article, right?" And um, Mish also wrote this chapbook, which was published by my collaborator Juliet Cook, called Evil Me. And I reviewed that one on Facebook, and Amish reciprocated by reviewing um, my my book, The Doom Hippies, which I'll just show you as a kind of a show and tell. The Doom Hippies, which um, is actually in the collection of the Widner Library at Harvard University for some reason. Um, I don't know why. And also it's listed as a textbook now, and it's like Syracuse University. I was just like, I stumbled upon this by accident. I was like, what? Somebody's teaching those poor children. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. They're reading smut. They're reading sheer pornography. Just outrageous, outrageously sexually violent, supremely depraved stuff. Nobody should read this book, available on Amazon in paperback. I'm
Oh,
gonna
too late. Too late.
reissue it, The Doom Hippies. Right.
All
Oh
right.
my gosh.
Great title.
Thank you. And that's my original
Definitely
thought.
thinks makes me think of my friends in the mid 70s for sure.
This is something that I composited together. I didn't use software. I scraped these images off of PNGs. And that is an actual satanic altar in his
Ooh,
eyes. That is an original, that's an OG sort of peace symbol made of flowers from like the summer of love. Speaking of doom hippies, um, this book, Thunderstruck, a dark poetry collection, is now in the hands of a woman named Sharon Miskael LaVey, who is a high priestess
I want to
of
see
the
more.
Church of Satan.
Hold it up higher.
And it was just delivered to Sharon
Up,
LaVey.
up.
Um, and she's going to be actually reviewing and blurbing this book,
What about the bottom?
which
Okay.
got a rave review from Cemetery Dance magazine. So
I
this is
like that.
thank
Beautiful.
you so much. The cover was done by our dear friend who's not doing too well, Sandy DeLuca, who's in two of our recent books, and is also started this collection down the road to publication, and it's got several poems,
Back. Let's
many
see the
many
back.
many poems by her, collaborations between her and me, and then collaborations between her and me and Aaliyah Celeste Williams, aka Pickles. So, that was the she did the original painting actually, and then it was turned into by the alchemy of Adrian Baldwin. It was turned into this cover. So, um, you know, a little prayers and good thoughts for Sandy DeLuca. And so, yeah, so Evil Me was put out by Juliet Cook of Blood Pudding Press, and he's an old friend of mine from since more than a decade ago, who also published this thing called by another one of our contributors and collaborators. It's called Pediophobia, which is by Daniel G. Sneathan, who also collaborates with me and Juliet. And this is an example of Juliet's wonderful work. Because she's very much like Jarbo in the respect that she does a lot of handcrafted stuff. I mean, if you order something from Juliet, you'll get things very textural things. I swear she must be neurodivergent. I mean, she didn't want to be in the We Are Gregor because she doesn't identify as disabled, but she is neurodivergent AF, right? And when you can tell when they're big on things like textures, that, right? I mean, this you could read this if you were blind. If you couldn't read, because you couldn't see the letters, you could I don't know, touch it and feel it, and you get a little foam things, and they're glittery too. So it's very pleasant, and it's nice to touch and feel, and you know So, so that is Eileen, and then Kevin Murphy. Yeah, yeah. Do you had a question or a comment or?
Juliet Cook,
Yeah,
uh, she's been open about her challenges in terms
yeah,
of brain stuff.
yeah,
I guess she doesn't want to be identified as
sure,
neurodivergent,
yeah,
but she's still been very frank with people that she has issues.
yeah,
So I give her that credit.
yeah. I was the last time that I had, Thomas Roche over to my house here. We were talking about how well I had this theory that not necessarily autistic people, but more, and I don't that autism actually
Let's not just categorize people. Let's
exactly actually
right.
autistic people don't like the term spectrum anymore, so that's very politically loaded. But autistic people my theory is that autistic people are the new human beings.
Mm.
There's so many of our mutual friends and lovely people, as I was saying before, like Ellen Mabey, like Lee Mitchell, Christina Deptula again. I think I don't know about Kevin, but I mean, I think it's not a bad thing at all to say that you're,
On
like
the spectrum.
on the spectrum because, my former um brother-in-law is a Harvard educated guy who was a professor of biochemistry at Cornell University, you know, Eric Schwartz. Um, he is very autistic, That didn't stop him at all. I mean, most people who are really good friends of mine, like Ellen Maybe, just who I love like my heart, and Aaliyah, you know, it, it's and also I want to dispel a kind of a myth about autism. It's not that autistic people are unemotional. I mean, Ellen is one of the most emotional people that I know. She's such a deeply feeling person. The fact is, and this is the truth about autism, is that autistic people feel too much, just like they can't, and Amelie Frank is also autistic, right? And identifies as autistic. Um, they feel too much. I'm not autistic, but I'm kind of like the way my brain works is so different from most people. I don't have, I think, I think that, Kevin and I are kind of like diametrically opposite, but symbiotic or complementary in the respect that Kevin has this incredible memory, and that he can disgorge, exact
Oh,
recall of movie plots of short stories. I remember when we were at those two conventions, you were just telling me about some of the stories that you wrote for um what was it I know that you did you work with Michael Moorcock or with um
I've met Michael Moorcock once, actually at that same World Fantasy.
yeah,
Haven't worked with him. I was writing a lot for White Wolf, and they were, you know, I think in very much inspired by him. So it was like I wasn't, however, working directly on anything with Michael Moorcock though.
there was another great legendary author that you did work with, or at least besides George R. R. Martin, but uh um
Carr is very good.
Zelazny, Roger Zelazny, right?
Was Zelazny, of course. Yeah, Zelazny was part of the wild cards from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And actually, my very first sale for wild cards, I have somewhere in my stack of papers. I can actually recite what Roger wrote back to me verbatim, but it was also very, very short. He was improving my story and my use of his character Pan Rudo, and the letter was nice. I liked. That was it. So but that's a perfect thing, especially as a young author of 26, to get from Roger Zelazny.
Right. And Kevin, you and Thomas Roche both attended Santa Cruz, UC Santa
Yeah.
Cruz, as did my former girlfriend. I always forget her name.
He was okay. It's
Kat,
okay. It's okay, Alex.
yes,
It's better this way.
Kate Lansdale. Kate
Uh,
Lansdale. Did you know Kate at all?
No. I think there's a whole lot of people I actually who attended Santa Cruz at the same time. I only met afterwards in in real life. Not
Wow.
that Santa Cruz wasn't real life, but in case of it's a big college. There's lots of
Sure, sure.
you
I
don't
mean,
cross
that's
paths as much.
yeah, I mean, so that's how I knew initially I knew Thomas Roche because he was dating this woman named Laura Shapiro, and then I we had dated previously, and then we broke up, and then I was dating Kate Lansdale, who's now a professor of English at Pasadena City College, right? And
Mhm.
so there was this little group of kind of misfits. And anyways, and they all went on to great things. Laura went on to be the director of the Artaud Theater in San Francisco, and um, and Thomas, of course, you know, was nominated for the Bram Stoker Award for the Panama Laugh, and among many many other incredible things. He co-edited two books by with Nancy Kilpatrick, and I just kind of want to talk a little bit about Nancy. I want to share some kind of memories of Nancy.
Mhm.
So if you could like, what was your first like connection with her?
Well, actually, it was at that World Fantasy. It was like I got to know her then. We hung out, especially since, Tom was there as well and,
Yeah.
made friends with her. Didn't actually sell a story to her. It's like I wrote one story, which I submitted to her and Tom, and Tom liked it. Nancy didn't. And,
Okay.
it's like, but it's a co-editor thing. So it's like, didn't sell to her, but I think this is like the first time I'll be, in an anthology with her, which
Sure.
it's unfortunately, going to be able to, talk to her
Right.
after this. I hadn't even known that she was ill.
Yeah. I mean I knew that she was, but I didn't know the nature. I thought it was sort of like, well, Pat Cadigan has been holding on for, for you know
Hmm.
for years now, right? And I mean, I love
Hmm.
her so much. I love her so much. Man, she's one of my biggest inspirations. And Nancy was kind of an integral part of the whole. She kind of knit together the room, like so to speak, a la the Big Lebowski. I mean, she kind of had that. For one thing, her imagination was so deliciously dark and she really kind of evoked that gothic
Hmm.
chill, which is so pleasurable and kind of hard to define, that goes right together with the music. I mean, I think
Hmm.
like the music of Bauhaus, Sisters of Mercy, Joy Division, and it's actually and Velvet Underground, Thomas Roche really kind of was one of those big figures to me because he really wanted to write as much as I did. And then we were, roommates together at World Fantasy, and we were next door to Harlan Ellison, right?
Hmm.
Harlan Ellison came out and I was having a cigarette. I used to smoke and I thought, oh my gosh, so he's gonna like ring me a new one because it's Harlan Ellison, and he was never shy about being, very vocal about his opinions, one of which is like, don't smoke, right? And instead, he was like, "Hey, I'm going to be typing away, on my typewriter here, and if that bothers you, just bang on the door, right? Bang on the door, and I'll stop at whatever I'm doing." And I was like, and I was so like, I was just such a fanboy. I was like, "Oh, Mr. Ellison, it's such an honor," It's sort of like I was placating him, whatever. And it was like, but so yeah, so man, we've lost some people, and we lost Val Kilmer, that's really heartbreaking. He was only what 68 years old, man, or something like that. He was 60, 65 or 60 in his 60s. And so one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of show off this book that Nancy and Kevin and I and a bunch of other members of our community, not only our community, the dark fiction community, but actually musicians as well. And I just want to show the folks, all our two of our viewers, this beautiful, beautiful cover, which was the art and design were done by Adrian Baldwin.
Hmm.
And this is the special collector's edition, which we did for the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, which was an organization that kind of helps out musicians. And we had the devastating wildfires in LA a couple of months ago, and the members of Bauhaus, specifically David Haskins, David J. Haskins, and his brother Kevin Haskins from Bauhaus and from Love and Rockets, both contributed um, previously on what they weren't on any albums. They contributed to this album called Los Angeles Rising, LA Rising, I think. It was to benefit the Sweet Relief Musicians Fund. So that gave me the idea, right, to do this special edition. We're going to be doing a special edition to honor the memory of Nancy Kilpatrick. And I just I just want to read from the just a paragraph from the forward by our good friend Billy Martin, aka Poppy Z Bright, um, because it really, I think it sums up how a lot of us feel about Bauhaus. And I'm going to be asking Kevin in a second um, about his piece. Um, so just okay, so um, this is the final paragraph of Billy Martin's forward, right? I spent much of 1987 and 1988 in a fatigue jacket upon whose back I had lettered, in what I imagined to be a medieval font. Pure sensation, the beautiful downgrade, going to hell again. I pressed a tear-stained story manuscript into Daniel Ash's hands after a Love and Rockets show. Some of my characters were doppelgangers for them, and I mentioned the band in my first novel. Bauhaus helped define my youth. To be introducing this anthology all these years later is sort of a mind fuck, but a nice one. So put on your bat print snuggie, cue up some Bauhaus. My personal favorite is Burning from the Inside, but you can't go wrong. And enjoy. Poppy Z Bright, Billy Martin, New Orleans, Louisiana, February 2025. So that is, you know, my heart, right? My heart. Billy Martin, man. What a great man he is. And we have so many people. Lagar Lahartija Nick by Aaliyah Celeste Williams, who can't be here today because she has a family function. Um, Rosengarden of the Caged by one Mish Murphy. We're going to be talking to Mish about that one. Hope and the Maiden by the late great Nancy Kilpatrick. We have Rats Live on No Evil Star by the magnificent Caitlin R. Kiernan. Bela Lugosi's Accomplishments by Richard Modiano, who is the emeritus executive director of Beyond Baroque. And Death My Love by Tara Van Flower from the bands Lycia, and also collaborated with Typo Negative and went on tour with Typo Negative and is a good friend of ours. The Passion of Lovers by Seb Devinsky, who's the is the author. He writes for Meerkat Press right now. He's the author of many amazing science fiction novels. We've had him on the show, and he's also translating my book, The Flowers of Doom into French, which is just blows my mind away. Sandy DeLuca, Alexander Elizabeth Honesberg is a professor of philosophy and also a contributor to one of the Crow anthologies. And we're republishing a Crow piece from her. Um, she's also a musician who plays out with places like Madison Square Garden. Um, uh, Nicole Vasari, who's a legendary author. She was in the what was it, the Thomas Ligotti um journal Vosterian, I think. Yeah, and uh Third Uncle by Michael Thomas Ford. You know Michael, right?
What are we talking about?
I was talking to Kevin. I was saying Michael Thomas Ford is a mutual friend of ours, I believe, with Tom, right? Tom Roche.
Yeah, I think I met him once back, back in the day, but it's like I haven't seen him in ages.
Right. Um, we have Carrie E.B. Black. Now, one of the more amazing pieces, just the fact of it, the fact this is very historically significant, is this is North of No North by it's a sort of a lyric slash, it could be a song lyric, it could be a poem by, you know, um, a woman who founded the band The Runaways with Joan Jett when she was 14 years old, right? Carrie Lee Crum wrote us an original piece for this book. John Palisano wrote us an original piece. John Shirley gave us Triggering. Um, and let's see who else. Christa Velisario is from the National Beat Poet Laureate of Greece. Carmela Voyas, who's um, came out of retirement from horror to write Poison Pen. Ethan Maroulis from Black Tape for a Blue Girl, Noir, Vampire Rodents, and Tubal Cain and Spawn Ranch wrote an original, song lyric slash poem for us. Um, we have New Year's Eve and the Ghost of Bela Lugosi by Rondo Hutton Horror Award winning author Christopher R. Gaudier, and uh, Casket of Crisis, which is a special for the special edition by Kevin Andrew Murphy here. Um, The Horn by Ryhor Grigoris Siziecki, who's a filmmaker in Belisarius, who has one of his films had a soundtrack by Christopher Franca from Tangerine Dream, and he's worked with Clive Barker. He tried to get Mr. Gone off the ground in 2013, but that was one of those famous projects that never, you know, succeeded. So, but he's an amazing guy. And then I've got a few pieces in here. So I I'm doing a small bear.
Yeah. Joan Baez is in Los Angeles at the rally.
Joan Baez is in Los Angeles at this rally. Okay, so yeah, it's just if I hadn't mentioned before, my parents went to school with Joan Baez. Um so so I'd like to
I'm gonna have to go.
okay, so
It's been fun hanging out.
it's been great, Ken. So any pearls of sort of psychedelic cosmic consciousness to leave us with?
Oh geez. No.
Not too much pressure, right?
I
Nah,
need it. I need it.
not
Come
at the moment.
on.
Yeah, yeah, I guess be here now on the Small
All
Bear
right.
Show. That would be
Okay.
about it.
Okay. So we always
Uh,
do the squeezins, right? And a
oh yeah.
collective paw. So
All right. I've got my multicolored uh,
yes.
hand things there. All right.
Are your
Neil
hands
Young,
hurting? Are your hands hurting you?
Neil Young and
I
Joan Baez.
have arthritis and carpal tunnel,
Me
Oh
too.
wow.
both,
Me
Okay.
too.
Oh
and
my gosh.
and we keep going. We keep writing.
We keep going. Collective paw.
Yeah. All
That
right.
looks like. See that?
All right. Oh yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, good luck, and I hope it feels better.
Okay.
Bye
Same to
bye.
all of you. Bye bye.
mm.
Okay, so I guess I'll talk to Kevin first. So Kevin, what was your I know that you wanted to be in an anthology with Billy and Caitlin. So what was your inspiration for Casket of Crisis?
Well, I mean, honestly, you said, which I asked which song has not been done that you would really like to be done, and you said, "Drink the New Wine," and so I went, okay, that's one of the new ones I've not caught up on, and so I did put it on repeat, and since it's very much the exquisite corpse, game where it's like try to put all of these disparate pieces together, and
Yeah,
so I ended up realized that a psychic doing object reading would be a very good way to take all of these disparate pieces together and
yeah,
have figure things out. And I've moved to Reno, and I thought, well, I've done like the other story that I did for you was basically at my time in Santa Cruz. So it's like,
yeah.
okay, I'm going to put together some new memories of Reno, but going back to the very, very old things with Virginia City and
Right.
just bits and pieces of history.
Yes. That's amazing. So you got a degree in professional writing, if I'm not mistaken, from Santa Cruz. Um,
Yeah, I basically I've got I've got a master's in professional writing from USC, and then
Master's
Santa
in Pro-
Cruz I got both a creative writing, literature, and anthropology, folklore double major.
that's brilliant. That's beautiful. So how were you were able to apply, I think for our all of our two viewers, um, what was your first what was your first literary success, your publishing success? And then B, what sort of advice would you give to people who are, just starting out like we were back in the 80s?
Okay, well, my first it's like putting aside high school speech and debate tournaments and various other
Right.
things. I went to state 3 times, so like I was writing poetry and everything. My first professional sale was in college. I wrote an article on wishes for Dragon magazine, so it was like
Hmm.
that got that worked out really well. And then while basically trying to get free copies of gaming books so I could expand it. I ended up having board games thinking that I was looking for work. And
Okay.
so I got into writing Taos Lanta. One of the other writers was Stuart Wick, who then founded, White was doing White Wolf magazine. I wrote for him, and then he later on, did you know White Wolf games, which
Hmm.
included Vampire the Masquerade and everything else. So
Right.
I knew him back from the day on that. At the same time, I'd been sort of rattling some doors, and I got the gig to write the second Wild Cards game book, and then
Right.
George R. R. Martin read it just to get approved the
Good.
manuscript,
Yeah.
fell in love with my characters,
Oh my
and decided
God.
to jump me into the gang. Um, at, you know,
It's
at the
beautiful.
tender age of 23, which was
Wow.
a very, very nice thing to get. And, I
Yeah.
basically, I said the right thing is that it's like, well, your writing needs some work here and there. And I said, I'd rather be bench warming in the majors than pitching in the minors. And he's a huge baseball fan, so it's like this was the exact right thing. And
Oh
then
my
three
God.
years, 3 years later, I got a chance to write a story for Card Sharks, which was the 13th volume and the first one where we were going on over to Bain Books.
Yeah.
And that's actually being reprinted just this month, finally, like
Wow.
20 later.
It's amazing.
And yeah, and then I approached Stuart Wick saying, like, would you like me to maybe edit an anthology for you you know, for Vampire the Masquerade and everything? It's like, well, we're already doing that. but would you like to write for it? And so I got into that. I actually got Tom into writing for
Yeah,
their anthologies. And so,
right.
lots of it is, who do you know and what's going on. And as a matter of fact, Wild Cards was actually how I got in with Paul Salmon, because like back at
Oh, nice.
the
That's right.
yeah,
Paul
it
Salmon,
was the
yeah.
Tucson World Fantasy. I had just been jumped in, and then Sage Walker was like the next person after me. And so I decided to just call her from the, you know, payphone there, just to chat with her. And while we were talking, saying, "Well, what are you writing right now?" It's like, I'm writing a story, where Elvis is stolen by the elves. And she said, "Oh, is that for Paul Salmon's anthology?" And I said, "No. What? How about this anthology? How am I supposed to know about this anthology?" "Well, it's invitation only, and you're not
Right.
supposed to know about it." But I wasn't supposed to know about it any either. But major editor, I will, you know, uh, ended up, she said, "Oh, well, Sage, I can't use your story, but you should send it to Paul." So then Sage gave me Paul's number.
Oh my God.
I ended up calling Paul from there to just ask, "Can I please submit a story to you?" And Paul was both kind of flummoxed, but then finally said, "Sure." And then, I sold I'm Having Elvis's Baby by Miss Janet Carter of Polk County, Arkansas, which was basically a retelling of Tam Lin with Elvis is Stolen by
Oh,
the Elves,
nice.
because he didn't have anything like that. And then um, Tom Roche and I had written a story for to get a rejection from a magazine that will remain nameless, but
Uh-huh.
basically said nothing was too extreme for us, and we realized is that it was kind of nothing, no amount of undead strippers with chain straws were too extreme for them, but they really would be squicked out by, oh, a Philippine vampire deciding to exchange heads with someone who was trans, who didn't like their body. And so it's like, let's go ahead and write the most extreme story that we can to get
Oh,
a rejection, which we did, but they didn't admit it was too extreme for them. They just said it didn't work. Then we ended up selling it to Aberrations magazine,
yes. I
and
remember.
Aberrations, however, was then having some trouble and was waiting forever. And then so I ended up saying, "Well, let's just show it to Paul," and Paul took it for
Right.
Splatterpunks too. And then we
Right.
ended up getting the gig to write for uh, Glenn Danzig's Veronica, and so we're the
I
cover
remember
story
that.
of
Yeah.
issue 12. So it was like lots of stuff there. So
Yeah.
how do you break in? Long story short, everybody just rattle every doorknob you can, and you will sometimes find that they start opening all at once.
That is amazing. And it really is a lot of you have to be fucking out there with, like I pestered people. I pestered, Gauntlet magazine. I sent them stuff. I got a really, really nice well what was it? Not Gauntlet, that's Barry Hoffman, but Midnight Graffiti. I got a really, really nice rejection letter from Midnight Graffiti. It was handwritten, saying basically you got what it takes, but you need to still slide some story structure in there, right? And then my first, so oh, you also wrote I believe it was a novel with Edward Lee, right?
No,
You didn't.
I did a collaboration with Jim Moore uh,
Oh,
for 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 White Wolf.
oh, okay. Um, because I have a very, very strong memory of meeting Edward Lee, and we were talking about you, and he mentioned that you had some project together.
Hmm. Maybe we were in an anthology together.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, because one of my first things I just if for
Hey,
all
Alex, can you take a
yeah,
short time out? Time out.
sure, sure.
Bio break. Bio break.
No worries, no worries. So yeah, um, one of the first things that I had published back in the day was I was working with this magazine in Australia. It was then in Australia called Blood Songs magazine, and they were sort of purported to be the most extreme of extremes, right? And my 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 so we just have the set design here, right? And so they published after I met Lucy Taylor at the what was the what the, that was World Horror um Atlanta, right? And so I interviewed her for Blood Songs, and then they published a piece by her as well. And so that led to my, getting on board with them. And then my first short story actually ever was published originally accepted by the people in Australia, Steve Proprosh, and then it was published by when Blood Songs moved to Orlando, it was published in this one, Blood Songs number 8. So um, that was pretty extreme, right? That's extreme kind of horror magazine. And um, so yeah, I and so yeah, so the Splatterpunks 2 Over the Edge. This is here. This is the
Yep.
anthology that Tom Roche and Kevin Andrew Murphy had a piece in called Head Turner. I remember this because when I met Edward Lee in Pasadena through a mutual friend, we were sitting on a curb, in Pasadena, California, and I said, "Oh yeah," and I was talking about, yeah, I was like, I said, I can't believe I'm sitting on a curb with the author of Head Turner, and he said, "No, Header." I wrote Header, right? And so it was just one of those amazing moments. It was like, I can't believe, you know, I'm sitting here with Edward Lee, and so like Splatterpunks, this is my copy of. I can't believe it's been so many years. Splatterpunks, Extreme Horror, signed by Paul Salmon for Alex Johnson. See you in hell,
Hmm.
right? And um, so let's talk about the Black Sabbath book because Paul very generously um, and brilliantly reworked his Splatterpunks 2 story, which is called Within You, Without You, um, and and he turned it into completely rewrote it and he turned it into Within You, Without You, Retro Roads Remix 25. So with a lot of reference to, of course, the late great Randy Rhoads, who was the, classically inflected, um, lead guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne's band. So, could we talk about your story in Golden Halls, which was in the forthcoming Hand of Doom, a literary tribute to Black Sabbath, and how that got started? I know that I kind of commissioned it, and I said, "Could you write me Heaven and Hell?" Right? So, how did you take that commission and kind of work with the themes from the song Heaven and Hell?
Well, basically, you gave me my choice of songs. You said definitely doing Heaven and Hell, which I really loved. And honestly, the imagery in Heaven and Hell has so much tarot imagery in it.
Yeah,
Um, and kings and queens, so it's like tarot and and playing cards and everything. And there's so much divinatory meaning that you
yeah,
can do that. And it also, with other stories I've written, there's stuff with fairyland. I remember, I was mentioned, the Elvis is stolen by the elves, but it's like the whole Ham Lin story.
yeah,
This is, the classic bit where the Queen of Fairyland is sort of like there are two roads,
yes.
but there's the third road, which is the road to Elfland. And it's a bit of, if you're going to be working with all of these things, I read tarot, and a lot of these things weave together. And so
Yeah,
I wrote a story, and I said I don't need to do it set in the modern day because, it's like, okay, I'm older, and I don't really need to try to counterfeit it as here's somebody today living in Santa Cruz because I'm not having that experience. So I just went and set it back in the 80s when I was in college
right.
and used the memories then, did it very much as a period piece, but there
Yeah,
were, I think it worked well from that end to do it because, it's also divination.
right.
And Pamela Coleman Smith, the illustrator of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and there's like so
Sure.
many amazing things that she did there, and it's magic symbology.
Yeah,
And
right. That's beautiful. And one of the many interesting and fortuitous kind of connections within our, it's almost feels sometimes like my life is a shared universe, um,
mhm,
anthology in many respects, because it's almost surreal the people that I've touched, whose lives I've touched, or I mean, that sounds wrong. I mean, whose lives have intertwined with mine. And so a very young Carrie Lee Chrome was predated by Kim Fowley and was it um, he's still around, Rodney on the Rock, Rodney Bingenheimer, right? And resulted in a lifetime of trauma. Initially, um, Carrie was in on the ground floor of Hand of Doom and produced about 14,000 words of one of the most brilliant short stories I've ever read in my life. It's actually more of a novel,
mhm,
and it was based on Children of the Grave. It's called Children of the Grave. Up until about 3 months ago, um, until she had to pull out because of sickness in her family. But we were going to publish. This is going to be the first ever short story publication by the woman who wrote Waiting for the Night and California Paradise. You know, so it was going to be, and the story in itself. The reason I brought it up for several reasons is because one thing, that Lord Dr. Lois Lee, who is our partner with, um,
pardon me, allergies.
that's yeah, wow. Um, so our partner with, Children of the Night Incorporated, she works with like a lot of, runaways and with a lot of, children of the streets, children of the night. That's why they call it Children of the Night. And of course, Carrie Lee Chrome famously founded the Runaways, and was, brutally raped by Kim Fowley. And Jesus Christ. So at any rate, she worked through her, one of the ways that she was working through her trauma was writing this story, which had a lot to do with kind of with alchemy, with Kabbalah, and with the tree of life, the kind of hell world beneath the tree of life. The I forget the name. Mish, do you know anything about Kabbalah, or Kevin, do you know about Kabbalah at
About
all?
tarot.
About Tarot? Okay, it's
Yes,
Yeah,
also
a lot about tarot. I read
yeah,
tarot
okay. It
many,
also
many years,
had a lot of Tarot references in it, and I compared it. I said,
but I didn't
well,
try to go to the Kabbalah thing.
right.
I was doing tarot.
I told Carrie that I thought that her story was kind of reminded me a lot of Harlan Ellison and reminded me a lot of Poppy Bright. Very, very brilliant. I hope that Carrie one day publishes this thing and completes it and turns it into a novel, and whoever publishes it will be the luckiest person.
and
Harlan,
and and I think the underworld, from the Kabbalah in tarot, I believe, is the Qliphoth.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it has to do with the Klippa. Yeah.
Kevin, the Kripos. What did you say?
The Qlipoth. I think it's
Spell.
Qlipoth.
And I never heard that word before. Tell me about it.
Basically, it's Kabbalah, and I know it actually from writing for White Wolf and the Mage. They basically use the Klipothic bit for the Nefandi, and it was like I basically know it's sort of mostly filtered through Mage because I really haven't studied the Kabbalah um
It's an underworld.
carefully. Yeah, but basically, it's the dark section of the Kabbalah that deals with Lilith and the other demons and so forth.
Uh, uh, Ray demons. Okay, yeah. I try to avoid demons.
Yeah.
It's just like not
Mhm.
probably good for my spirit to pursue that. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean, Kevin?
Yeah. Well, the
Eh,
thing is that the whole tree of life. I mean, it's just a case of it is dealing with everything. It's well, heaven and hell and the world
That's
in
true.
between.
That's true. That's true.
But anyway, I think that in Kabbalah, it's there are certain letters that are basically part of the Qlipoth, which are basically the underworld section of it. It's also very similar to the runes, where of course, the runes don't have necessarily saying there's nothing that is specifically underworld about the runes, but there are certain ones that are have very few nice, meanings, like Nauthiz, which is, necessary pain and constraint. It's definitely not pleasant, but it's like, I broke my knee right now and I'm busy healing up from that. So it's like, okay, not skiing and everything, necessary pain and constraint.
Mhm.
It's not pleasant, but sometimes it's necessary for healing.
Well, Kevin, I don't always do tarot, but I've done it for many, like 50 years. And I recently did a couple readings for myself,
Mhm.
which is unusual. I don't do them like all the time. Just I only do it when I think it's when my gut tells me to do them.
Mhm.
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I tend to not read for myself. I'm much better at reading for other people. It's a case where I think it's the case. It's a lot like sort of being a doctor. It's a bit where you should not prescribe your own medicine. I mean, there are some times where you're just going, it's like, okay, this is kind of obvious, but there are things that can be dangerous. It's always good to get a professional opinion who's not you.
Well, Kevin, do you read? Do you
Yes,
read? Okay.
yeah.
Well, we could do like I could read for you and you could read for me. What do you think?
Possibly. Yeah, I don't have my cards with me right now. I
I know
said
I'm
over
not
at my
saying right
sister's
at
house.
this moment, but
Yeah,
it's an
yeah,
idea. I
yeah,
think we're already friends
yeah.
because I liked the name Kevin Murphy was one of my cousins. It's a cousin, first cousin
Yeah.
of mine.
Oh,
So that's probably why I friended you. Other than that, you're a writer, you know.
yep.
So I
I
trusted
mean,
you.
got Alex and lots of other people in common. Yeah.
I trusted you as a Murphy.
Hmm.
All right.
Oh,
Well, I'll get a hold of you and maybe we'll do a reading for each other.
Okay, sounds good.
That's cool. That's really cool.
aw.
All right. Sorry, Alex.
No, no, no worries. I was
Going.
just going, aw. I love this. I love it so much. So I hope that both of you will contribute to the David Bowie book.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking on that. I probably should do it off the show, just sort of like talk about which songs and so
Sure.
forth
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Of
everything.
course.
And actually, I was just like, I'm really glad to see the book. I got into the Bauhaus like just at the wire, so not for the regular paperback, but for the hardback
Yeah,
anthology. And you said that you're going to be doing a special edition for Nancy.
yeah, that's correct.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming will that hopefully then have my story in it, and will you be
Yes.
doing that as an ebook so people can get it that way?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it'll have all of the stories in it. And plus, I'm writing a sequel to A Hope and the Maiden. So,
Oh, great.
Maiden Star. Yeah. Um,
Okay, great. So we get to have a full expanded edition. It's a great way to honor Nancy.
yeah, thank you. And so I
Do you want
will
to mention Doors? The Doors?
let's
Oh,
talk
I'm
about the
definitely doing
doors.
something. Do want something to do something for your Doors anthology
Yes,
too.
yes, let's talk about the doors. I mean, well, so like for a lot of people, I think the doors resonate on a level that's sort of mystical. I mean,
Hmm.
they're because of their Jim Morrison's profound profundity and his at I mean, I don't know many people who requested the entire, the complete works of Friedrich Nietzsche when they were 16 years old as a birthday present, let alone were reading people like Antonin Artaud and Leopold Sacher Masoch and um Burroughs and Ginsberg, like at that age, his father, I believe, was in the Navy, was a Navy captain, and it was it was in Vietnam, So like Jim didn't want to be associated with that level of cruelty and hate and violence. And so he for a long time he would tell people that, my parents are dead, right? Until his parents found out about that. I think his mom found out about that through a publicist accidentally, purely accidentally. And he and Ray Manzarek had gone to film school at UCLA in about 1964, 65. And unlike the um, Oliver Stone biopic, which featured Val Kilmer as the late great Val Kilmer as Jim Morrison. I have an interesting anecdote about Val Kilmer too. But unlike that story, in fact, that film that was shown in the the short film that that Jim made, I don't think that it was considered pretentious at the time. It was just a very, very deeply archetypal movie. Also, he graduated from UCLA Film School, right? A couple of years later, he had been living on a rooftop in Venice Beach, California, and Raymond Zarek, who'd been, I believe, he was in the army. He was in the army, um, and he'd been deployed. I don't know if he was deployed in Vietnam, but he was in the armed forces, and he was happened to be in Venice Beach, right? About 1965, he comes across his old, classmate Jim Morrison. He's like, "Hey, what have you been doing?" This part of the film is true, right? He says, "Oh man, I've been living on this beach, I've been living on the beach on top of this abandoned building, right? And I've been doing a bunch of acid, and I've got this whole concert in my head, right? It's like, and Ray said, so so songs? You're writing songs? Yeah, man. And it's like, here's some songs. I got all these lyrics. Well, Ray read the lyrics, or recited some of the lyrics, and he's like, oh my God, these are fucking brilliant lyrics, And they decided to form a band. That band was The Doors.
Wow.
And right. And there's also another really, really interesting connection with The Doors because okay, so you've all heard of a band called X, right? X? Like, no, you've never heard of X.
No.
I've heard of them, but
Okay.
I don't. But refresh us.
Okay, so X was one of the first punk rock bands. Okay, so you have the British, so the punk invasion of the 70s, right? You have people like John Lydon in England. You had, of course, um, you had a guy named they made a movie about him, Sid Vicious.
Yeah, okay.
And he was taught bass by Lemmy Kilmister, right? Lemmy Kilmister. We're also doing a Lemmy tribute anthology. The late great Lemmy Kilmister. You
Lemmy
know,
killed Mr. I never heard of him. I heard of Sid.
right? Yeah. Well, Lemmy had a little band called Motorhead, and he was a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. He also was friends with the Beatles, you know, and way, way back early on. But so X was a band that came out of Beyond Baroque literary arts. It's a venue in Venice in Venice Beach, California, which was founded in 1968, and it's had some legendary speakers and performers over the years, including like people like Dennis Cooper, Wanda Coleman, Viggo Mortensen from, the actor Viggo Mortensen is also a poet, right? And a musician, and he's also
I'm
a publisher.
familiar with Baroque.
Yeah,
I did not know this.
yes. Um, so I have a couple of friends, actually about six friends who are part of actually six or seven friends, who I've worked with and performed alongside of, and we're on the show together. One of them was Iris Berry. Iris Berry, um,
How do you spell it?
Berry. Iris
Okay.
Berry is considered punk rock royalty because that's the name of her poem that she did for this book called um, the Outlaw Bible of American Poetry.
My God.
And and
I want
she,
to see that book.
right, she, I've got it. But anyway, so this is only the best of the best of the best. It's got William S. Burroughs, it's got Leonard Cohen, it's got Patti Smith, it's got, I mean, everybody, everybody. It's got her, it's got Ellen Mabey, who's in our book. It's got Mark Olmsted, who's in our book. It's got Leonard Cohen. I mentioned Leonard Cohen. And so it's got Iris Berry and Dominique Lowell, the Janis Joplin of spoken word, who blurbed my book, The Death Jazz, right? Along with John Shirley and Thomas Roche, right? And a bunch of other people. And Lemmy blurbed it. So like um so anyway, Richard Modiano invited me to speak at Beyond Baroque, in 2013. I was I had just developed and published this book, The Death Jazz, which was I was encouraged by Ellen Mabey. Now, Ellen Mabey, one of the first things I knew about her was that she had been, her fans are like people like, okay, you've never heard of Exene, if you heard of Henry Rollins.
Let me see. Can I see that for a minute?
What?
The book?
The book. This is Ellen Mabey's book, okay?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to show me the. Okay.
Oh, I also
By
have a
the.
book by Exene Cervenka, but
Okay,
the,
that I was going to look at. I had never heard of that.
yes. So Exene Cervenka and her, I guess they later became married and they were divorced. Then Exene remarried Viggo Mortensen, right? The
Oh
actor
yeah,
who's
him.
in
I know him.
Lord of the Rings, right? And
Yep.
so Ellen maybe encouraged me to develop and publish the Death Jazz. It had a cover by Renee Diedrich, who, it's a long story. She's an educator, former educator with LA Unified School District. Long story about that. She did this book called How Dirty Girls Get Clean, which if you had been that part of the scene, you would have been part of the Dirty Girls Collective. I
Well,
was
I'd like to know that information. It's helpful.
right. I was an honorary member of the Dirty Girls. Renee called me Nipple Clamps Johnson. Okay. I just like, what the fuck, right? Anyway, so Iris Berry, and a guy named Jerry Stahl, who wrote Painkillers and Permanent Midnight, which was made into a movie with Ben Stiller, right? we developed this book called How Dirty Girls Get Clean, and it had people like Lydia Lunch in it, right? And so it's just a really amazing book that came out. So
Oh, I'm
um,
right there, Alex.
right, you're so
I'm gonna
right
write
there
that
with the
down. How
Dirty
dirty girls
Girls,
get clean.
right? So
Uh,
Iris
shock treatment.
Iris Berry was on the board of directors for Beyond Baroque. She and I read together, and she's um, just a brilliant human being. She also publishes Richard Modiano. His book, the Forbidden Lunchbox, um, was published by Punk Hostage Press, which Iris founded with a guy named A. Razor, who got his moniker from his what he used to use as a weapon to murder people. And yes, you know, so anyway, um, and then Exene Cervenka, um, so founded this band called X after she met and then later married, John Doe. He goes by John Doe, right? They formed a band that was very much inspired by William S. Burroughs, and it's
Okay.
called X. And their first album, um, well, they got on the radar of actually Ray Manzarek from The Doors, and he produced their first album, which was called Los Angeles, which I remember when the first reviews of Los Angeles came out in like Rolling Stone, and it was like they basically said, okay, so you've got um, these sort of cut and paste, random violence um, lyrics that are very reminiscent of William S. Burroughs, right? And when Ray Manzarek first heard them, he'd been turned on to them by a story in the um, LA Weekly called um, you know they sound like murder, and it was like, who are these, what is an X, So he goes out to see them, I think at the Whiskey A Go Go. They were playing at the Whiskey, and they played these songs, and he's like, oh my God, they're these incredible. So he winds up producing Los Angeles, right? Which had songs like, Johnny Hidden Run Pauline, Johnny Hidden Run Pauline. You gotta check out X, man. And
What year was that?
this is 1977.
Okay, 77.
And it's one of the most like the primeval bands of punk rock. There was in Britain you had
Okay.
the Sex Pistols, and here and the Germs and the Cramps and whatnot. Here we had like bands like Christian Discipline. If you ever see the movie The Decline of Western Civilization Part One, which was done by Penelope Spheris, who went on to make Wayne's World, right? X is playing over the opening credits, right? Nausea, their song Nausea. Bands like like Christian Death were part of the scene. They're sort of more glam rock, death rock. They call themselves death rock. And then you had like the Cramps, the Germs, the whatever, the Dead Boys, Circle Jerks, um, and Black Flag, right? So all these bands were in the film as well. And I'm good friends with the guy,
Um,
um,
repeat. Said death rocks.
Death
ROCKS.
Rock, Death Rock. It's called Death Rock. And so
Okay. Oh,
so
death
that
rock.
so
Okay.
then in England, you had at the same time as these bands were coming out, you had bands like Susie and the Banshees, right? You had Joy Division, you had Bauhaus formed, um, and then they went on to inspire a lot of different bands, including, Bauhaus, inspired like bands like Swans, right? Which came out a little later, I believe in like 1982. And we have Jarbo in the book from Swans. So he's also in the Burroughs book. I
Hmm.
mean, can you imagine? Like it's unbelievable. Like I worship Jarbo. he's an incredible artist. And so anyway, Ellen Mabey um, wrote this book called The Cowardice of Amnesia.
Say it again.
The Cowardice of Amnesia. So this is the
Okay.
cover, the
The cow.
cover, the
Okay.
cover photography and author photography
Any
was
coward?
done by, this was by Viggo Mortensen, who's one of our biggest fans. Um, and
The
it was,
cover was by Viggo
the
Mortensen.
cover was done by Viggo Mortensen. Yeah.
The actor.
The actor, yeah.
Yeah,
Woo!
he's a painter
Right.
too.
What? He's
I
a
didn't know
painter
that.
too. Yeah.
I did not know
He's a
that.
painter too. And I forgot to mention to the people that you are also a fine artist, like David J. Haskins as well, who's also a fine artist.
Or him.
Um,
Or Kevin.
yes. And then
Both of us.
right. And so then we have this is Viggo Mortensen's Canciones de Invierno, right, which is his album that he put out, and is in Spanish and English. And I believe that's called it means songs of winter, right? This is a beautiful, beautiful lyrics, beautiful songs. I highly recommend it to, anybody. That's just a very, very eye-catching, beautiful little, the booklet is great. It's got these photographs that he did. You
Cool.
know, he's a beautiful, beautiful man. So he did the cover and then Exene Cervenka edited it. It was published by 21361, which was Henry Rollins. You've heard of Henry Rollins. Okay, right? You guys. So yeah, Henry Rollins is one of Ellen Mabey's biggest
Hold
fans.
it up again. Hold it up again. The back.
The back.
Yes. Back down, 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 down.
She's a real hippie. Like Ellen Mabey is a huge hippie,
Okay. Thank you.
right? Thank you. And
Yeah.
so Ellen was like she's incredibly encouraging. The Beyond Baroque people are incredibly encouraging. They'll I mean, it doesn't matter if whether your name is Dennis Cooper or your name is Wanda Coleman or your name is Amanda Gorman, or whoever. Um, if your name is Alex S. Johnson, it's like, hey, you're a poet. You're trying to do some stuff. You're trying to do original stuff. Welcome on board, right? They had me on as a featured speaker at Beyond Baroque
Cool.
and um Ellen Mabey, who had the job that Exene Cervenka had at Beyond Baroque, selling and running the bookstore, which was odd because she's so neurodivergent, right? I mean, we have the same exact learning disability, which affects math. So here's Ellen Mabey going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I remember when I first met her in person, it was absolutely I think I absolutely terrified her because she didn't recognize me. And I was like, hey, Ellen, it's Alex, We've been we're friends on Facebook and you blurbed my book and everything like that. And then you and Shirley and she's like, oh my gosh, she's such a beautiful person. And so we've been close friends ever since then, and I give her a huge squeezins. I mean, she's so squeezable. She's so squeezable. I don't know what to do with this woman, right? And so she and John Shirley are two people who um played a incredibly important role in my career. And I think it's very important to have friends, you know, like
Mhm.
I can't overemphasize to the people, it is true that it is who you know, but it's who they are, right? Not just having influential friends. I mean, we can all be influential in our own right. And I think it doesn't matter whether you're, you know, David J. Haskins, the founder of Bauhaus,
Hmm.
you know, um, who, you know, or, or, or you're Eileen Murphy or Alex S. Johnson or Kevin, you know, I mean, Mish Murphy or Kevin Murphy, you guys are probably related, you know. Um,
Was
but
thinking of that. I didn't want to say it.
yeah, right. But you know,
For
if
genetic test.
right, genetic test, 28 and me or whatever it's called. Yeah. So the most important thing is being a good person, you know, or just trying to not be an asshole.
I believe that. No, of
Yeah,
course.
like one of the things when I was on the phone with John Yamras, who you introduced me to, you know, today is that, you know, I was telling him about the whole a collective paw philosophy that we have here. And he said, that's so beautiful because that's exactly what he feels. And I just encourage so much. I encourage everybody, you know, everybody and anybody to come on board, you know, because I wouldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it if wasn't for people like, you know, I worked with Tom Sullivan and I worked with Betty White, you know, Betty White. I mean,
Mhm.
the Betty White, you know, and they were very as clients of the secretarial firm that I worked for, you know. Yeah.
Tell me more about what John said because
Yes.
um it sounds like you guys are on the same page.
Yeah. Well, he had talked about Gerald Laughlin and is a professor at I don't know if he's around anymore. But he was a professor at Long Beach State where I attended. Um, and see, I had a really close dear friend of mine who passed away in 2020 from a fentanyl overdose. Her name was Jordan Gallagher, and she worked with you know, Kate Braverman, the novelist Kate Braverman. She was a educator and worked with her at Cal State LA and UCLA. And they both passed away around the same time, just a few years apart. And so, so um, actually, there's a connection here that has to do with Val Kilmer because the 1985 film Real Genius, there's a
Mhm.
character called Jordan Cochran that was directly based on Jordan Gallagher, which is not her real name, but it was her the name she took the name from The Great Gatsby, the character in The Great Gatsby, right? And she was the one who said, "Hey, you should go to Long Beach State because um, you know, Gerald Laughlin teaches there, and Gerald Laughlin was a close friend of Bukowski, right?" And so I was like, "Woohoo!" You know, I never got to take a class from Gerald Laughlin, but I did wind up in a book with Charles Bukowski. And that came about because of Catfish McDorris and Catfish McDorris um, is I don't know if John you and I know that Alexis Roan Fancher is a close friend of his, and we're going to have them all on the show, and I would love to have all of you on the show together with them. If you you know, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that would be incredible. There's so much rich history together. And we just started talking about all the people that we knew, you know, our mutual friends list.
You and
And
John have
through
a lot of
John, yeah. And it was just amazing experience and it's sort of really positive. And, you know, he he said, look, I've got these, I'm going to send you some of my books. One of them is like a 524 page, you know, like, you know, telephone directory. It's a doorstop and it was edited by Mish Murphy,
no,
right?
although I have to say he's kind of mad at me that the index does not has typos in it. That's all.
What typos?
But um, that's neither here nor there. You know.
Oh, okay. Um, so anyway, he said, so I'm gonna, and I just got to know him, so he could be
No,
insane.
he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
I know. I've had so many bad experiences with people
No, you won't.
who turned out to be insane, but he
Well,
seems
he's
pretty.
insane. Yes, he is insane. He's a writer.
If he's cool with you, Mish, then he's good with me. If he's a
Yeah,
friend of
yeah,
yours, any friend of yours is a friend of mine.
yeah. He's kind of a friend of me
Yeah.
because he's like real opinionated and
Oh,
etc. You know, he's like old and opinionated, but he's a good guy.
okay. Well, you've been very, very helpful to me, and I'm not going to discuss this on the air, but you've sort of like helped me to understand some things that had to do with some workshops and some open mic things that I had some mistaken notions about, because of my not only my neurodivergency, but now my brain disease, which
Did not
fucking
understand.
sucks, right?
Well, okay, great. That's great. I think I
Yeah,
know what you're talking about.
yeah,
But John, I just wanted to, he's like a typical poet.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy. So, and he said, "Look, I'm going to send you about six things. I'm going to send you a manuscript. There's like 10 new poems. You can do
But he's
whatever
good. He's
whatever
good.
you want with it. You can
He's
publish
good.
it. You
That's
can,
all.
you know, you
He's a
can
good guy.
you can do whatever you want with it." And I'm like, "Holy shit. Like we just met."
No, he's my friend. No.
I know, but that's
So that,
awesome.
that that's all. That's all. That's what it is.
Yeah, so I want to do a, it's not even an invite only. I mean, nobody else is invited. This is a closed shop thing. Oops.
I know. I know.
Right, but this is oops, now people are going to want to be part of it.
Who?
Um,
How are we going to do that? What do you mean?
well, what I mean is that I just said that on the air, but we don't have any viewers.
No,
We have like
no,
two viewers, right?
that's
So
true. But everybody has to know that, you're the alpha dog.
here's
You're
an
the
alpha
alpha
dog.
dog. You're the alpha dog,
I am the
Alex.
alpha dog, yeah, man. So
So, we're a
yeah.
group, but you're
And that's another really interesting point, and I've only recently embraced my alpha dogness. And I want Kevin to weigh in on this because Kevin is a kind of an alpha dog. Kevin was actually intimidated the fuck out of me when I first met you, man. Like you'd already you had people like you know I remember you came into our hotel, I think, or we were talking with Tom, and then you said something about you just you know give a back massage to Kristen Catherine Bush or something like that, right? And you said, I think that she's hot from my bot or something like that. And then but but you impressed the hell out of me, and it was like, wow, and your instant recall of things like I remember you were yeah, I mentioned the Lord of Illusions, Lord of
Mhm.
Illusions, Harry de l'Amour, and then like within 30 seconds, you gave the entire as a detailed summary of the the Harry Lamour, story, and I was like, holy shit, I would never be able to do that in a million years, because like when I read something but then if somebody asks me for a summary, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. It was great, man. You know, so 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 you're kind of like an alpha dog. So I don't know if anybody's told you that before, but
Occasionally, I always it's like, I just think I'm being Kevin. It's like I've got this memory. I've only met two people, um, who have the same sort of memory. One, Karen Anderson, the w wife of Pool Anderson,
right, yeah.
met him, and she was, she was basically my age now, and I met her when I was in my 20s, and it's going like, my God. I'm wondering if is my recall going to be like that in my 50s? And the answer is yes. And then recently, it's sort of like now the generation is going the other way. My friend Matteo Barbagello, who's a professor over in Europe, he's an Italian guy, but living in Dublin,
Yeah,
and new upcoming author, but it's the case where he's got the same type of memory. And I said, I
right.
wish you could have introduced you to Karen. We've had three of us, but it's the case where, remembers everything.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful thing, and it's kind of like, um, and I'm sure it's come in handy
Sure.
on many
Hey,
occasions. So,
question,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Kevin. Do you think you have an eidetic memory? Like
I'd
a
say it's
photograph? Is it photographic?
I'd say it's sort of semi-eidetic. Um,
Do you see
Sometimes I
an
get
image?
nervous and I will not remember things perfectly, but if I get drunk or tired or extremely annoyed, then I will just suddenly start reciting with precision because I don't give a fuck anymore. And it's
Like,
like, okay,
like
fine, you've got to, freak
poetry.
memory.
But what about like
Mhm,
if you have to let's say there's a list of poems that you want to
mhm.
give in the poetry reading in a certain order. Can you look at that and then when you go to the poetry reading, call it up in your mind?
I will say yes, but the problem is that with editing and everything, is that very often if there's like a list of poems, people have reordered the poems three different times, and so which list am I remembering? Because you keep there's sort of like remember the order. What the order that you redid yesterday, or the order that you showed me three days before? There's stuff like that. But for example, I reciting poetry, I can recite a lot of poetry from memory. Um, and it depends
When
on
did
what
you
it is.
start memorizing poetry?
Huh?
Did you have to memorize that poetry or did you just absorb it when you were younger or what?
Answer yes. I tend to, if I read a poem three times, I will generally memorize it. And if I'm in the right state, I will memorize something on first reading. But you usually need to be in the right state um to recite it. And but I remember actually back years ago, having a Thanksgiving dinner, and my grandfather started ranting on one of those rants. It's like, well, back when he was a child, children had to memorize poetry, but children these days did not have the discipline. And I said, well, that's just because nobody asked us to, Grandpa. It's not that difficult. And he said, no, it's because you don't have the discipline and blah, 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 blah. And so I finally just set my fork very quietly onto my plate, got up, went into my sister's room, pulled off the dictionary off the shelf, opened it up to Jabberwocky, read it through three times,
Cool.
came out, recited it
Love it.
beginning to end, and said, there, I just memorized and recited Jabberwocky. And I'm like,
That.
okay, well, Kevin, you're exemplary. The other kids are lazy. It's like, well, yes, but they still can memorize poetry too. It may take them a little bit longer, but
What are some of the poems you have memorized?
well, Jabberwocky, of course.
Okay, of course.
Yeah, and I did some of the Tale of Goldie Pinklesweet from Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator by Roald Dahl. I made the point of memorizing that just because it was fun, and it's like a 10-minute poem to recite it.
Okay.
And mhm.
How
And
about Ozymandias?
um
I bet you have
I
that.
have I have not memorized it, but it is short. And
How about
if you
We Real Cool?
Oh yeah,
what
oh, well, cool. Yeah.
No?
wait
We Real
wait
Cool?
We Real Cool. I'm actually blanking on that. I think I've heard the title, but I haven't read the poem.
Let's
I,
see.
I can do Ozymandias.
Okay, do it,
Well,
Alex.
I from memory, this is when I was 13, the last time I
That's so
recited it.
cool.
So
13.
I just a little bit of it. Okay, I met a traveler from a distant land who said, two vast and trunkless lakes of stone stood in the desert, etc., etc. My name is
Desert.
Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my work, ye mighty in despair, etc. Desert
No,
birds, etc.
no, something remains
Right. Yeah.
around the wreck of this decayed. Some
Right.
the desert flows far on.
Exactly. Yeah. So we had to memorize when I went to this private academy when I was a kid, and we had to memorize, like William Blake, Shakespeare, Robert Burns, and um, and so that's how I got into kind of enjoying the sa and savoring the sounds of poetry because I'm sure that you will both agree that poetry it's
Mhm.
it's a multi-sensorial thing. I mean, you can't, especially when you're dealing with somebody like Blake, who's literally he called it printing in the infernal method, right? Where the process of printmaking and the poetry and the artwork and the designs were and the design motifs were part and parcel also of a kind of a mystic philosophy. It was the man was deep, right? And so talking about like Tiger or talking about like was it
Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night,
How
what
about the
mortal
raven?
hand or eye could frame thy
The
fearful
raven.
symmetry?
right,
The
Ah,
raven. Once upon a midnight dreary.
yeah.
right, exactly. Once upon when I pondered long and
We
weary over many a curious volume of forgotten lore, something something came a tapping, you know, bust of
And nearly napping at my chamber door.
exactly.
This and nothing more.
Yeah, I'm also doing
approached upon a busted palace right above my
Busta Palace, yeah, Busta Rhymes, man, and so so I'm also doing a Poe book.
Really?
Um, so I
I
know
did not know that.
I know that mo both of you will want to be part of that. A guy who made a incidentally speaking of Edgar Allan Poe, you know, one of the people who've successfully filmed Poe stories was Dario Argento, and I just wanted to show this to you because, for one thing, the cover, right? That's from opera, and also the inscription. I think you'll appreciate this. This is from Maitland McDonough, who's a Columbia University professor of film, and so you can see that, the right, and then
Cool.
yeah, so Dario Argento, man. To Alex, friend of Dario Argento. He's not really my friend, but I did interview Claudio Simonetti, right? Um, so yeah, for and also John Carpenter. John Carpenter, like so I would like to do something. I would like for us to read some things. So maybe
Okay.
Kevin, if you could start us out by
Wait a
reading.
minute. Time. There's
Hi, Ben.
somebody. I have my girlfriend is here. I'm gonna she's gonna come and is it okay if she
Does she want to be on the show?
yeah, she wants to be on the show.
Oh, hells yeah. Of course, more the merrier. More the
She's
merrier.
she's a retired nurse and cat
Right
lady.
on.
She's a cat lady.
Love it. Love it. Okay,
All right,
so
hold on just one
okay.
second. Just keep with.
Okay, so yeah, man. So like let's talk about movies. Kevin, like what are some of your favorites? What are your
hmm.
go-to favorites?
Trying to think. Trying to think. It's like there's I like a lot of movies, but the problem is that being an author, I end up deconstructing everything, and
Sure.
so it's like I love this, but I can still see where it's not so much the flaws are as oh, here's the seams, here's where they rewrote it, here's where they did a very,
Right.
good good cut. I mean, honestly, I adore Labyrinth, but that's just because it's such a, wonderful fairy story.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some of the notes about how they made it. It's like where they had basically different stories that they were trying to do, and then ended up doing a synthesis where it makes it so that there's some parts some of the parts that you can tell that you say, well, this doesn't quite work as much as it could. It was, left from a previous script, but overall, it's such a, great fairyland story. It's a favorite. Um, and actually, for stories from the same era, Angel Heart, which
Oh
is
yeah.
like,
William
you,
Schwartzberg's
huh?
novel. Yeah. William Schwartzberg, right?
Yeah, which is very, very dark, but very, very well done. So I'm trying, you know, those actually both came out within a year or so of each other. Um, I'm trying to think of other movies that I really liked. Actually, like Angel Heart, The Ninth Gate was amazing.
Oh, Ninth Gate. I love that movie. That's one of my movies I've watched repeatedly. It's so beautiful with by Polanski, right? And with Johnny Depp
Yeah,
and Simone Sen what's her what's her name?
yeah.
Yeah, that actress, yeah. I believe she's married to Polanski.
Could
Yeah,
be. I don't. I'm just saying. Movies that really impress me. It's like, okay, this is very well done, and they just had too much fun doing some of this. How about
right.
you? What movies are you really liking, or
I just want to show like this is from Jennifer Connelly and Creepers, which came out a few years later by Argento, and
Mhm,
I think I think that they were filmed back to back, Labyrinth and Creepers or Phenomena, as it's called in Europe. Um,
mhm,
well, I would say what comes immediately to mind, I've been watching the uh, Suspiria 2018
mhm.
by
Haven't seen it yet.
Guadagnino. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. It's primal. It's sort of like you want to talk about some, uncanny forces, man. Like it's even more terrifying than Dario Argento. I mean, if at all possible, because he grounds it in a real world context of the Bader Meinhof gang, the terrorist gang, and he also he kind of goes deeper into the mythology of the three mothers, and so
Mhm,
they adapted an actual dance, which in the film is called Volk, and I believe the guy from Radiohead did the music, um, and it feels like something forbidden. It feels like a movie you should not be watching. You watch it, it's the peril of losing your mind. All of the sound effects, the eerie kind of sort of witchery sounds and images that were in the original Dario Argento film from 1977. um, they're even more pronounced here, and they're kind of put into a more compellingly realistic context, which makes it worse, because and some of the like I don't know if they're fantasies, they're supposed to be visions that are generated by the witches themselves, are terrifying. The scene where the character is portrayed by Dakota Johnson, um, manipulates the limbs of this woman who's this this dancer named Olga, who's being targeted by the witches, and they basically crush her body using telekinetic,
mhm.
magic, you know, it's like a combination of telekinesis and magic to crush her physically, and she winds up just, you know, every limb in her body is every bone in her body is broken. She's on the floor, she's wet herself, she's in a pool of a spreading pool of bodily fluids. It's it's the most terrifying scene of any film I've ever seen in my life. And that's just 15 minutes of it, you know? And it's
Actually,
yeah,
one of the things that you'd mentioned is putting me in uh mind of Shakespeare's The Scottish Play, which you're not supposed to mention.
yes, the
But do
Scottish
you know
play.
the story behind the curse on that is that the witch's song in it, Shakespeare cribbed it, plagiarized it, but basically Shakespeare was like, I need a witch's song for this. Let's go spy on some actual witches.
Holy shit.
Okay, let's take down notes and I'll use that in my play.
Oh,
So that supposedly the story is that the Scottish play is cursed because Shakespeare actually did not write the witch's song. Or at least he may have rewritten it, but he this was from an actual witch's song that he went and spied on.
by the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes, right?
The whole bubble, bubble, toil and
I'm in
trouble.
trouble. Fire
Hmm.
burn and cauldron bubble.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Hmm.
And that was so we have another unexpected guest. Mish, could you introduce your friend?
Sound is off.
Sound is off. Um, you need to unmute yourself or something.
All right. All
Okay,
right.
there you
Hi.
go.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're okay.
Hello, Mish's friend.
This is
Yeah.
my best
I don't
girlfriend
know which hand I'm using.
and sister,
Nice. And
girlfriend and sister,
what was her
Deborah
name?
Weaver.
Okay,
She's a retired nurse.
Deborah Weaver. Welcome
Yeah.
to the show. I'm
She's
Alex,
also a cat
and
rescuer,
this is
animal
Kevin Murphy.
rescuer.
Is probably a relation to Mish Murphy. He's an author and a good friend of ours, and he's a contributor to our anthologies. And yes,
She's my honorary sister.
excellent, excellent. Um, wow, honorary sister.
Kevin
Yeah,
Murphy.
Yeah, Kevin Murphy.
He said
really,
it
really cool. Yeah, Kevin Andrew Murphy. Yeah, it's a very, very nice
and,
Irish name, right?
Are
Wow.
you Irish, Kevin?
It's yes, but I'm actually much more German. My mom was from Germany. My dad, we basically have the Murphy name on the father's side. So we would trace down the 23andMe as sort of like there's basically lots and lots of British Isles for the most part. It's like, my Irish is mixed with English, Welsh, Scottish, and a little bit of Dutch for interest on my dad's side. And then my mom's side is, all German, but and everyone adjoining Germany.
I'm so sorry.
what? That's a lot.
He's not a Murphy.
That
Never
covers a
a
lot
Murphy.
of areas.
Yeah, I'm definitely Murphy.
Okay, you're definitely a Murphy. That's okay. Well, those genes could have come down from that great great grandfather. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually went back to Ireland and we traced everything down, found the town that everyone had come from. It was like, Ulster, the part of Ulster that is actually still in Ireland, and uh, where it turned out it's like the Murphys had a feud with the O'Neills, and the O'Neills had chased the Murphys
Yeah.
out, and we were being told this at the pub, and I sort of laughed and says, "Oh, damn those O'Neills and their roots." And the woman looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I went to Santa Cruz. I'm just familiar with O'Neill's surf shop. I had one of their wetsuits. Thongs and you board shorts and everything. It's like, I'm sorry, I just don't know O'Neill's is the surf company."
Oh my
Well,
God.
good for you. Thanks for defending the Murphy name.
Hmm.
Does it need defending?
Oh, well,
Oh,
Well, on a
thank you,
oh,
sailboat,
oh,
Deborah.
wow.
Irish surname. The reason for that is because it means, sailor. And I have a feeling that's both because there were an awful lot of sailors, because it's an island, and also there are probably a lot of people who's like, who is my dad? Some sailor. Okay, you're a Murphy.
That narrows it down,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Hmm.
Hey, I wanted to do something. I wanted to have us read some things. Um,
Okay,
and whatever you like. So, Kevin, could you start us off?
I'll have to
Hmm.
go find something. Give me a
Yeah,
chance. Wait.
sure.
Actually, can I refresh my drink? Because we're coming up on 2 hours
Okay,
right now, and
Yeah,
I'm
no
going to.
worries. Yeah,
I'll
Okay,
find
and I,
something and Kevin can refresh.
yeah.
No, we're just gonna find, he said to read something, so. I want to find
He's
something
getting
good,
something to drink.
and he's getting something. Can I get you something, Deborah?
I got something to drink.
I'm sorry to, I didn't know it was gonna last this long. Thank you for, not freaking out.
Oh no, the dreaded dead air. Where is everybody? Oh my God, everybody's refreshing their drinks and they're, oh my gosh, so it's just me. We can't have this dead air time. This is really
I was thinking
terrifying.
of
So,
renewing my water and
wow.
I think you wanted it.
So, wow, this is just like, I'm gonna take some screenshots
Okay,
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
she hasn't been taken out yet.
So yeah, I'm
I
doing
don't
some
want to have a
screenshots
break or
here.
you can take.
No, I don't know, however many we want. I think.
You were gonna get something to read.
Oh, we're gonna get something, you're right. I've got something here.
I love this. It's so casual. So got some watermelon in the background. Got a watermelon art. And then oh my gosh, so this is really great. So I'm hosting a show with my guests are off doing their various things. Um, so how's it going, my two viewers?
Oh,
Um, welcome to the Small Bear Show. Yeah, man, this is great. Got some Shakespeare here. I'll read you some Shakespeare. I'm just going to randomly open this book and
I
I'm
didn't.
reading Shakespeare's sonnet number 65. Okay, here goes. Sonnet number 65 by William Shakespeare. Since, hello. Hey, how are
I
you?
don't see anybody else there.
I know, right? This is very
I went
strange. You're
my,
not
Eileen
supposed
went to
to,
get something to read. Kevin went to get a drink or
I
something.
know. So you're not supposed to have dead air, but I'm reading Shakespeare.
Well, you're the only one there. So you're
You
the
could,
only one who will know it's dead air.
you
It's
could,
not really dead air.
yeah, well, yeah, if
Oh,
a
what'll
waterfall
happen
is in
if
a
there's
forest
dead
or
air? Well, does
if a,
something happen?
if a podcast doesn't have any guests, you know,
What
make a
happens?
sound. Um, so you wanna join me for some Shakespeare?
I'm back now.
Okay. Wow. So um I figure since I already launched in on this, um I'll just read sonnet number 65 by William
Are you
Shakespeare.
reading something you wrote?
No, this is Shakespeare. This
Oh,
is
okay,
Shakespeare. Okay.
okay.
I figure I'd go with something, tried and true. Since brass, nor stone, nor earth, nor boundless sea, but sad mortality o'ersways their power, how with this rage shall beauty hold the plea whose action is no stronger than a flower? Oh, how shall summer's honey breath hold out against the wrathful siege of battering days, when rocks impregnable are not so stout, nor gates of steel so strong, but time decays. O fearful meditation, where, alack, shall time's best jewel from time's chest lie hid? Or what strong hand can hold his swift foot back, or who his spoil of beauty can forbid? Oh, none, unless this miracle have might, that in black ink my love may still shine bright. What does this mean? Shakespeare is basically saying, I'm so fucking great as a poet, as an artist, that I'm I'm more powerful than time itself. My poetry will preserve the memory of my beloved of the moment of the day, right? It could be a man, it could be a woman, against time itself. I mean, that's some hubris, but he was Shakespeare, you know. And this is not the only Shakespeare poem where he's saying, "I am the shit, man."
Who's reading
Like I was
Shakespeare?
just reading about from Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare is basically bragging that he's more powerful than time.
It's
You
the
know,
it's the immortality of Sappho, and it's definitely working for him.
Shakespeare was a
right?
bragger?
Yeah, he's
Of
definitely
course. I
um
can't even believe it.
I mean, this is not the, you know, in Shakespeare, like it's such a powerful, important, beautiful resource for poetry. You know, I recommend to people like anybody, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but for people who are like wanted wanted to write poetry, just fucking do it, right? Just do it. And also, you got to read a lot of poets. I mean,
Oh
you don't
yeah.
necessarily have to read Alex S. Johnson or Kevin Andrew Murphy or Mish Murphy. A lot of Murphys in this clan here. Um, I'm kind of Celtic myself, you
Dude,
know, but
what is he?
what I'm saying is that you have
Johnson?
to read
I don't know what that means.
generously. You have to read
Alex Johnson.
deeply and for pleasure as well as for edification, whatever the fuck that is. You have to read poems, and I'm talking good poems and bad poems. I'm talking about Jewel and Emily Dickinson, and just get right in there, you know, T.S. Eliot, right? It's fun stuff, right? I know I'm
Yeah.
preaching to the choir, right? And so,
Some
um,
people are good at it.
right, so it's pure fucking metal, right? And so, Kevin, if you could start us out by reading anything you like.
Okay, actually, I do have something. While I was grabbing my coffee, I ended up actually pulling up my Kindle, and I've got my one award winner for wild cards. I in back in 2019, I won the Darrell Award for best novella for my novella "Find the Lady," which was in Mississippi Roll.
Mhm.
And so I've got that, and I'll just read the introduction because I'm
I don't know
very
which
pleased with
one.
how it started. So this is Find the Lady by Kevin Andrew Murphy from Mississippi Roll, edited by George R. Martin and Melinda Snodgrass. Roger Washburn dozed fitfully, almost waking to the clank of his stateroom door against the battered brass corner of his antique steamer trunk. Its sides were black, vainglorious emblazoned with the amazing Ravenstone, some turn-the-century conjurer who had left no other record of his passing. Mr. Dutton, the skull-faced business mogul Jokertown, had it in the back of his magic shop, using it as a display stand for chapbooks and penny tricks. Roger had bought it with his first paycheck from him and taken the stage name for his own. The open door swung idly with the roll of the boat, and to its other side, also swinging, but from the hook of a wrought iron stand bolted to the stateroom floor, hung a vintage parrot cage, its drawer similarly ajar. No parrot dwelt inside. This was not unusual. No parrot had resided there for a long while. The parrot belonged to Lenore, Roger's pet raven for more than 20 years. Found her and her sister Annabelle Lee in Central Park, knocked from
Nice.
their nest by a storm. Annabelle, like her namesake, had perished.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Nor,
Huh?
unlike her
Edgar Allan
namesake,
Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe, yeah, Annabelle
Um,
Lee, many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea, that there lived a maiden that we know by the name of Annabelle Lee. And I can go a whole long aside to it, but it's like we can look that up. But Annabelle, like her namesake, had perished. Lenore, unlike her namesake, had
no,
thrived,
not Lenore.
learning many clever tricks over the years, sometimes too many.
Rebecca.
The boat listed again, banging the door against the table, louder this time, and Roger woke with a start, seeing both open doors and then the unbolted padlock on the floor, lockpicks beside it. Roger stared. Her eyes were intense blue and attractive in the way that only a born showman's can be, though few ever saw the left. He customarily concealed it with layers of secrecy, a flip of tawny blonde hair over a black silk eye
No, I
patch,
haven't.
hiding a blackout
Turned it
theatrical.
down.
All right, let's turn it back up.
Is everything okay with?
Stupid thing.
Okay, theatrical contact that made its appearance as a mysterious orb of jet to anyone who allowed to pass the first two veils of deception. Roger's horns were black as well, though quite real, and firmly attached to the skull, 3 inches long, devilishly becoming, burnished blacker with a bit of mustache wax. Everyone who glimpsed his horns beneath the magician's top hat Roger usually hit them with assumed they were a gift from the wild card, a minor joker to go with his ace, that being countless parlor tricks. Everyone was wrong. Roger was latent, living under the wild card's almost certain promise of death or disfigurement since childhood. His brother, Sam, an artist, had as well until his card turned in high school, giving Sam fountain pens for fingernails and a lion tail, similar one of their friend Alec had sprouted when he turned into a unicorn. A few months later, after one too many times of being beaten up and called Nat Boy, Roger decided that he would cheat, forcing or at least forging a card from the deck himself. A dik-dik, a small African antelope stolen from the Brooklyn Zoo, donated its horns, transplanted by Hodgepodge, Jokertown's back alley psychic surgeon. And once Roger had mastered all of the tricks sold by Dutton's magic shop, Cameo, a trance medium most thought to be a fraud, channeled the spirit of Blackwood the Magnificent, a legendary magician of the pre-wildcard era who had taken his secrets to the grave along with the silver pocket watch. Now Roger possessed Blackwood's secrets, and his pocket watch too. But Roger's most precious possession was Lenore. He gasped her name again, then once again louder, but querulous, Lenore. And I think I'll pause there, but that gives you the introduction of Find the Lady. That's in Mississippi Roll.
I love it. I really want to read this. And so, and by the way, for our
The,
viewers,
I got the Darrell Award, which is for the best Mid-South fiction, which is either for everyone in the Memphis area, I think like 100-mile radius of that, or who has written a story set there. And since I've got Roger as a musician in addition to being a magician, there's some Elvis stuff in it, and the story ends in Memphis, Tennessee. And I found out of the blue, George R. R. Martin like sent an email to all the wild cards saying, "Well, congratulations too." And I thought, okay, somebody else has done something cool. And it's like, what? It's me. It's like Kevin has been nominated for the Darrell Award. It's like I hadn't even known that. And then I not only was nominated, I won it.
that's
Cool.
congratulations, Kevin. That's awesome. And by the way, for all of our two viewers, that's George R. R. Martin, as in Game of Thrones. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
George R. R. Martin is great. Game of Thrones.
Oh, I don't know anything about
Well, you
that.
do, because I told
Well,
you.
I assume this is going to be archived, and
We
maybe
didn't
maybe
watch it,
two
huh?
viewers right now, but there should be more down the road
Yeah.
to publicize this.
Hopefully so. I mean, with our, distinguished guests here, certainly. So that was really good. And it's really,
Yeah.
you're a really fine storyteller. I love your characters. Obviously, there's a reason that, people like Roger Zelazny and George R. R. Martin really like your work because it's compelling, it's interesting, it's fun, and you can really you know, immediately, like I think it's a hallmark of a really good storyteller is that you immediately want to know, like, who is this guy? Who's this guy? And what's up with the parrots, you know? I mean, I would read that story in a second, man. So congratulations on your award. That was really awesome
Thank you.
work. And
Yeah, I've
so,
got a new story out from Wild Cards actually. Well, this past month, had uh the the very latest volume came out, and it's called House Rules, and it's actually set in Cornwall. And so I've got a story in there called The Nautilus Pattern, and
oh, nice.
I'm very proud of that. Actually, it came out in the U.S. in February or March. It came out in Britain in this past December.
Wow, congratulations again. I would love to do a book exchange with you, Kevin, and I owe you an author's copy of the Bauhaus book. So remind and
Yeah.
also Mish as well. So remind me about that. So
Well,
um
the thing is that you're in Sacramento, so we could also there's mailing, but it's also good excuse to possibly me drive down, you drive up. Do you ever get up to Reno?
I do not drive actually for a number of reasons. Now I'm disabled with brain disease. I really can't um and but we could I could get a ride. We could meet like at for coffee or something. I would really enjoy that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
let's do
that
that.
would be fun.
Let's plan that. Yeah.
I can certainly drive, but as I
They must
wrecked my knee at the beginning of last
Southern
month
California.
skiing, so I
Canadian
have been
time.
had. I don't want to drive as far as Sacramento till it heals. I'm mostly just doing
Oh yeah,
driving.
that's perfectly cool. Yeah, we could
Yeah.
like in the summer maybe sometime. Okay, great. And then Eileen, could you could you read something from Evil Me, please?
Sure. I'll read my most incendiary poem from Evil. I'll be right back.
Okay.
It's probably not really the most
Oh, yes. Well,
incendiary.
Incendiary.
I'm
That's
sure that
I
he
mean,
has many more.
I love that poem. I mean, I love that collection. And I don't have my copy with me, but Juliet Cook does such incredible work, right? Like I do have, and I showed this off before, but the oh yeah, there she is.
I'll have to say this poem
There's
is
Mish.
a poem, a breakthrough
Mish.
poem,
Yes.
because my editor was Alexis Rohnfancher.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's right. Alexis
Okay.
Rancher.
And she told me not to namby-pamby around, to really say what I had to say with using adult words and so forth.
Yeah.
So that was like a little bit far back, but I learned a lot.
What do you want?
My glasses. See them? Okay. Okay.
With a magnifying glass.
No, I should need it. Okay, I know where it is now. It's called When the Splash of Your Mind Awoke Me. I was encased in plastic, you unwrapped me with your Viking teeth.
Oh, Viking teeth. Damn.
Mhm. Soon your dick was a medieval mace.
Oh, Oh,
that ensnared my braids.
oh my gosh. I don't remember this poem at all.
Yeah. My prudish blonde Viking hair. And then you growled at me from deep inside your heavy armor. And I howled back like a mournful battle horn.
Nice.
You'll have to get the whole book.
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. Um, so I'm going to try to do something. I'm terrible at multitasking. And so if I lose you, I will um so I've got so I'm going to pull up a poem that I wrote for Alexis, right?
Okay.
And it's on the Small Bear Review, um, which is something I do just to keep my hand in. And besides, I like to publish my own stuff
Mm-hmm.
because I don't trust anybody else except Juliet Cook and you and a handful of other people. Um,
I understand.
so yeah, man. So I'm gonna read something. This is this is I was trying to do justice to our mutual friend Alexis Roan Fancher. Okay, you ready for Betty Page Bound? Just say yes.
Yes.
What?
Right, okay.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, I was very much inspired by Alexis and Kat as well when they were on the show last time. It's called Betty Page Bound, okay, for Alexis Roan Fancher. And it's accompanied by an illustration. I don't know how to show that in here, so I'll put it up, on my Facebook, okay? Sprawled across an acreage of restraint, feeling the toe curling weight of orgasm roll over me like a freight train. Car after car after zoned out hum, where in the distance I can feel the rope catches on flesh triggers and squeezes. Expansion, dilation, retraction, expansion, dilation, expansion, and there's cruelty abounding. Nothing says love like discipline, as every daddy knows, as every dilated, blushing, capillary engorged, cock thrumming cunt knows you aren't ashamed to lay it out, and to me that's a poem. Courage of conviction is poetry. Blood rolling away from the swarming head. It makes me feel like Anais Nin and Betty was my gal. Like Bela, she's undead. Dig the beat, beat, beat of chemical steam, the steam stream running to catch up with me as I watch cum bombs explode along the rails. The camera cranes away like the final money shot in Easy Rider. My smoking opium chassis, whatever, pulls away from itself. My new wine, my wife, my blade, my sacred bike. Everything is star-studded whips and tendencies towards drip, drip, drip. Kaboom. Okay. And
Cool.
you know, that is inspired by Alexis, but it's just basically I've always been very kind of upfront about my proclivities. So I've never hidden them from anybody. So, you know, there's a reason that I'm in this book here,
Mhm.
right?
What is that?
Master Slave Book.
Is that a book you wrote?
No, it's
He was in it.
actually,
He was in it.
Um,
yeah, that's Penguin Random House sleaze and smut. That's very distinguished. It was a book of the month
No, it's literary smut.
collection.
So
It's
yeah,
literary smut,
that's
my
okay.
dear. It is
it's
very
what? Literary
literary. It's very
smut?
literary high. It's a
Literary, so it's not smut.
it makes you feel like a bug. That's Judy Davis and Naked Lunch, right? Yeah. It's a Kafka high. I
Hey,
love
Alex, I
having
think
you.
we're gonna Zoom.
Okay.
Oh,
So
zoom
I
out.
think that
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
it's
have
about
all
2.5 hours. So I think we're, I don't know how
Oh,
long the show usually
nice
go.
meeting you guys.
nice meeting you, new friend. And
Well, let me
Maybe I'll
tell
have
you,
something to read. to pass
Deborah is
the
an
time.
activist.
I am.
oh, yes,
Yeah,
tell
you
me
are.
about your activism.
Huh?
She's an activist.
Tell me
Yeah.
about your
Go to the
activism.
rally today.
There's no right in
There
there.
wasn't any, but she's been going to the rallies.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
We
So,
support activism.
because I'm like too tired. So
Yes.
I'm glad she's going from,
Well,
she
I'm
can
tired
represent
too, but-
both of us.
Yes, I
That's
am an activist as well. I can't really do much because
We all
disability, but
want moral support.
right on, man. Um, so way to go. We have a kind of a ritual. It's, from the beginning because we are a collective paw as well as Nocturnicorn books. And the collective paw is kind of a philosophy of communal support. Everybody helps out everybody else, and we can't do this alone. Why would you want to?
Oh, I
Of
know,
course,
you
it
can't, you
means strong
can't.
leadership, but not just individuals. It means being caring and kind and conscientious
I
and
like that.
supporting people and and
Play it forward.
lifting us up. And so we do something called the squeezins. So basically it's a squeezy hug. And we end each show a basic squeezins. Okay, so
And what is this?
It's a squeezing.
hug?
it's
A
a
hug.
squeezy hug. It's a
Okay.
simple. Kevin,
Okay.
you got to participate in the squeezins, right?
Come on, my,
Okay.
come on, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay.
Squeezins. Okay, I love you. I love you guys.
Love you all.
And hope
Okay.
I hope we can have all of you back for another show at some point.
Sure. And Deborah. Deborah's
And
a good,
Deborah. Yes, Deborah, please
she's a
come
good
back.
person.
Join us.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.